Let's go right ahead into the introductions. As mentioned, my name is Dennis Robert. I've been with BMW for a little over 5 years, been in IT for about 16 years. Um, Typical background, certifications, and things of that nature. I have a bachelor's degree in computer science, a master's in IT management. I'm currently serving as the feature team lead for the strong authentication topic at BMW. My private life, my wife and I have 4 beautiful children. We have 3 girls and 1 very energetic, very destructive little boy. I am quite the outdoorsman. I enjoy pretty much anything outdoors, hunting, fishing, etc. And so that's just a brief background about myself. Let me give you a brief background about BMW. So the BMW Group is obviously a worldwide organization. We have over 120,000 employees worldwide. The IT group itself is in over 29 countries. We have a large product portfolio, almost 700 locations in those nearly 30 countries. As you can see, multi-million vehicles in request. Very, very large group. The IT group is, I think, almost 6,000 employees now. The slide says 5,000, but we've continued to grow. And so worldwide, we are pushing well over 5,000 IT employees alone. And so that's a bit about BMW. Let's go ahead and talk about the BMW Strong Authentication project. Our project has been going on for about 2 years now. The goal of the project, or project objectives, is to enhance and increase the multi-factor authentication scenario at BMW across the whole IT landscape. Again, it encompasses 100,000 BMW associates, so internal employees, contractors, suppliers, partners, dealers even. So we have quite the large user base and quite the diverse user base. And this poses a lot of challenges for us as well, and which we'll get to a little bit later in the presentation. In order to take on such a large project, we've partnered with various companies, Micro Focus being one of our key partners in this endeavor. And just a bit of an objective background here. Currently, we've been using the RSA product, RSA Secure ID product for many years here at BMW, and we've made the decision to change and migrate over to the Advanced Authentication product from Micro Focus. We have been migrating all of our existing RSA applications to the new platform, and we're expanding also the strong authentication to additional use cases. And so some of the things we've currently been able to achieve has also been providing a user-friendly enrollment portal. We'll show you that in a little bit. Outsourcing some of the logistics and shipping things that really BMW doesn't need to be in the business of doing. And lastly, automating some things, and we'll show you a little bit about each of these here on the upcoming slides. All right, so let me just share with you our project support. Obviously, Micro Focus is a key player here, but they're not actually the first people we talked to. Mtrix, another German company actually, got us in touch with Micro Focus and is a reseller here. And so we work with Micro Focus and Mtrix in combination. Mtrix provides licenses, some project management support, and a custom enrollment portal. Micro Focus obviously provides the product and also our support for deployment, bug fixes, enhancement requests, etc. Our hardware token of choice is the YubiKey by Yubico, and we've chosen to use Bechtel, again out of Germany, to be our logistics and shipping company and partner. And so they have put together an online portal where our partners and internal associates can order YubiKeys worldwide and have them shipped directly to their offices. And so these 4 companies are the partners that we've chosen to work with and have been working with over the last roughly 2 years. And they've been pretty good to work with. So let me show you a little bit about where we're coming from, a little history here at BMW. So the RSA Secure ID product has been in use for, as I said, many, many years. I've been at BMW, as I mentioned, in my 6th year now. It was here long before I arrived. We have nearly 90,000 RSA tokens in distribution as of right now. And so it's quite a large number of RSA tokens. These tokens, as some of you might be familiar with, they have expiration dates. Eventually, they need to be replaced. The battery life is kind of tied to that expiration date. The token eventually shuts off, and the code's no longer visible for us, and the tokens need to be physically replaced with new ones. We protect over 100 different applications with 600 endpoints or more with multi-factor authentication at BMW. There's some current limitations that have caused us to start looking and caused us to start this project, to start this migration. It only supports single-step authentication. There's a limited number of options for application and system integration with the RSA security product. Token support is limited to RSA hardware tokens, software tokens, and of course SMS messages. The token types are all proprietary to RSA. You have to buy the RSA tokens. There's not a real good API for this, which is a real big drawback, and there's no capability to share RSA tokens across multiple user accounts for the same identity, which I'll get into that a little bit further on down the presentation as well. We have quite a few domains here at BMW and different user repositories that we all have single identities can have multiple user accounts, upwards of 10 or 11 even for certain users. So it's very difficult to share a single RSA token across multiple accounts. Really, it's impossible. Let's look at our new platform here, and forgive the Star Wars geek in me for the title of the slide, A New Hope, but Micro Focus Advanced Authentication product has really offered us a lot of new options for application and system integration. We have various different protocols that are supported, over 20 different authenticators. We have hardware tokens, smartphone authenticators, SMS, biometrics, and a lot more. The product offers us a lot more flexibility as far as which types of tokens we want to use. They're not proprietary to Micro Focus, so we can go to the market and we can buy a Fusion token, a YubiKey, a Google Titan key in the past, things of that nature. And so it's real flexible. It offers us the ability to get away from the proprietary tokens that RSA required us to purchase. It can utilize multi-step authentication. This is a great feature, and it's very user-friendly. A lot of our scenarios here at BMW, a lot of our applications are protected with multi-step authentication. It's kind of the standard approach for the Micro Focus product. And what this means is that a user, in most cases, is prompted for a knowledge factor first. Could be a PIN, could be a password. And then if that's validated and proven to be valid, then they are presented with an additional challenge for, say, a YubiKey, a hardware token. Or maybe they're sent a mobile push notification to their smartphone and requested to, authenticate via that way as a second step. This is a very user-friendly approach in our opinion, and we really like this about the product. And this is also built into the enrollment and token management features as well. All right, so let me just lay down a little bit of the groundwork here for where these new foundations are. So with the introduction of the product from Micro Focus, we've been able to build a strong foundation and establish our new MFA strategy, which includes modernized protocols and interfaces for application integration. As I mentioned, the RSA platform focused primarily on RSA agents that a lot of products had built in, or basically Radius. Those were the main two integrations or integration methods, and that doesn't offer us a lot of flexibility. Radius is quite an old protocol, and although it's still heavily used at BMW, we would like to get away from that and start using things like SAML and OAuth or other things. Obviously, the authenticator flexibility is a huge thing for us. We want to get away from these proprietary tokens with expiration dates and larger costs and get into a more flexible situation. And obviously enhancing the two-factor authentication experience for BMW associates. And this is where the multi-step authentication really comes in play here. So BMW has 4 separate sites to handle multi-factor authentication. We have servers in our data centers in Munich, in the US, in Asia Pacific, and in South Africa. And we're actually in the process of building out a cluster of servers in our China data center. So the China users will have a very direct cluster to utilize rather than having to go outside of the Great Firewall in China and reach out to Munich. So we're building that site out currently as well. Our infrastructure is built to handle thousands of transactions per minute, and this was put to the test recently when we all got forced to work from home. And we'll touch on that in a little bit as well. But we have nearly 150,000 identities enrolled already. So we've already enrolled more identities than in our RSA infrastructure, and we've distributed over 80,000 YubiKeys worldwide. And many of those users also are leveraging the push notifications available through the smartphone option. So this is kind of the groundwork that we've laid so far. And the YubiKey, as I've mentioned, is kind of our flagship hardware token. We chose the YubiKey because of the flexibility it offers. The YubiKey can offer multiple protocols. It supports HOTP, TOTP, certificate, smart card, all kinds of cool things. You could store a static password, and you can do a bunch of things with these YubiKeys. So they're really handy. They come in multiple form factors. Some have NFC enabled and NFC capabilities, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. We have the new Lightning Link option as well. So they're real flexible. There's options for pretty much any physical device, whether it be a tablet or a PC or a mobile phone, whether Android or iPhone. We have an option here to get a YubiKey and plug it in for the most part. Yubico pre-programs the YubiKeys for us and then provides them to Bechtel, our shipping company, and they do the shipping and ordering logistics for us. And then BMW simply imports these seed records, and the users get the YubiKey. They can self-enroll through the enrollment portal and then start utilizing their YubiKey for strong authentication or multi-factor authentication. So a little bit about Yubico and our YubiKeys. All right, so let's talk about where we're at. As I've mentioned, we've already been down this road for about 2 years now, and we've made quite a bit of progress. Our VPN scenario is our largest multi-factor authentication application to protect. It's about 70,000 users daily. And with this whole shutdown thing recently, we are pushing well over 100,000 people leveraging the advanced authentication platform at BMW to authenticate to the VPN securely. And this, we've actually done quite a bit of analysis recently because of this. We have over 2,000 authentication requests per minute during our peak times, our peak loads, which would be in Germany, where the overwhelming majority of our employees. This is quite a bit of traffic. We've had spikes upwards of 2,500 requests per minute, and we've had pretty good success in keeping things stable and up and running for our VPN users in Germany, and we're really proud that the product has held up for that. Our VDI use case has been migrated. We have about 10,000 users there leveraging their YubiKeys for VDI access. Like VPN, these VDI users come from all over the globe. We have them here in America, in Europe, of course, and elsewhere. We've migrated many Linux and Windows systems, so we have couple dozen Linux servers and Windows servers that are now protected by YubiKeys and smartphones. We're running a Windows client pilot to the 120,000 plus associates we have here at BMW. We have, I think, about 4,000 people in this pilot actively testing our Windows client. And what this does is this actually protects the Windows login with two-factor authentication. It replaces the default credential provider that Micro Focus has built into Windows with the Micro Focus on Windows client, and allows us to use the same two factors or multi-factors for Windows login as it would for VPN or any other application. We also have an HR app in Germany. We have almost 50,000 users who use the mobile push technology that is built into the smartphone authenticator in the product. And this is an app that enables employees to manage their HR data. They can view paychecks and things of that nature, and manage tax exemptions or things of that nature. But they're protecting this app also with the PIN and the mobile push authenticator. So this is a real, not an all-conclusive list, but this is a pretty good list of some of the larger use cases we've been able to migrate so far. We do still have quite a few left to go, but we'll cover that here in a minute. One other thing that I want to talk about just a little bit is the interface options. As I mentioned, RSA is pretty limited. It's Radius, it's built-in RSA agents. With the new product from Micro Focus, we're able to do so much more. Our web team over in Germany has integrated the advanced authentication platform with an open AM product from ForgeRock. This product protects all of our web applications with like a single sign-on or a multi-factor authentication requirement. And so this has been rolled out in Germany and globally, but rolled out of Germany for us. And it's connected to our platform and allowing users to protect web applications with YubiKeys, smartphones, etc. Using the built-in functionality, we're also able to establish a SAML identity provider. So if there's a web application, for instance, that cannot leverage the centrally operated solution from OpenAM, we have the ability to do this ourselves directly through a SAML identity provider. And so there's been a few use cases where they can't, for whatever reason, use the central approach, and so they've reached out to us, and we have this ability now to do this where otherwise with RSA we could not. The Radius still is a big interface. We still leverage Radius quite heavily. We have a lot of legacy applications at BMW, unfortunately, but these tend to linger around on us. But we're able to leverage Radius for this. And one of the greatest things about this product is the recent changes and updates, the recent enhancements that Micro Focus has made to the Radius server, and with these things they call Radius rules. There's these Radius input rules. They've allowed us to get quite granular on our configurations. They allow us to leverage various different input rules, enhance security as well. But this is something I'll touch on just a little bit later as well. And lastly, the API. The API of the product is significantly better than that of the RSA product. We've been able to develop our own documentation for internal developers here in BMW, but also obviously leveraging the Micro Focus provided documentation and their API guidelines. And this has allowed us to develop against the interface and get real customized approaches. We have some legacy applications that cannot speak in any of the interfaces for us, so we've been able to have a small web service developed against this REST API, and those old legacy applications are now communicating through a web service to this REST API, and we've been really happy with the REST API the product offers. It really gives us the flexibility to really connect any application or system regardless of what other interfaces are or are not supported. All right, moving along. We have had some challenges. As I mentioned, we have a number of different domains at BMW within the IT environment. And so we have domains for America, for Germany, for China, for South Africa, and we have financial services, which has their own subdomains underneath some of those regional domains. And so how do we determine, which user, or which identity, I should say, needs to be able to use which account? How can we avoid, I should say, one user, one identity having to have 10 YubiKeys, for instance, for all of his or her different accounts? Well, the product offers this authenticator share-in feature, or authenticator link-in, and we've been able to develop our own little API kind of in between our enrollment portal and the Micro Focus API to do this automatically for us. The product allows for a manual mapping of tokens or authenticators to different users. So they could take a single YubiKey and we could map it to every account I have in all my various domains. But we wanted to automate that, and so that's where we developed a small little REST API ourselves that automates this process for us. So as a user, as an identity, when I go to the enrollment portal and I say I want to enroll my YubiKey, I type in my YubiKey serial number, I push the button a couple times, and it enrolls that YubiKey against my default account. In the background, an API call is made to the BMW API that we developed, and that API goes through all of our Active Directory domains and says, okay, I know Dennis is enrolling a YubiKey, I know his username, I'm going to look for that username in all the other Active Directory domains. If I find it, I'll link it to this YubiKey as well. And then the actual Micro Focus API does the linking for us. We just send it the different accounts that we find. So this has been really helpful for us. We now can have one YubiKey enrolled for an actual identity, and that identity has that YubiKey applied to all of his or her accounts. So it saves us the requirement of purchasing additional YubiKeys. We can also do this with admin accounts. So many IT guys have admin accounts that are separate from their usual normal account, and in this case we don't want to have two YubiKeys or two different tokens for a regular account and an admin account. This sharing ability allows us to link those two together. So again, I can use the same YubiKey for all of my accounts and all my domains, including my admin accounts if I have those as well. So this is something we've been able to already accomplish. It's already in place and working quite well. We're very pleased with that. We have a custom enrollment portal, and our custom enrollment portal was developed by Mtrix for us. Micro Focus had one at the time, but we wanted a little bit different approach and style. And so Mtrix developed this for us. It's a very, very user-friendly. It's BMW branded for us, and it's got more of a wizard, enrollment wizard type approach, and step-up authentication is also built in here. And so we're very pleased with that as well. You will notice, just giving you some screenshots here, you will see something very similar now in the Micro Focus product. They have adapted a very similar approach, very user-friendly, very visual, very graphic-based. It's very nice. So we haven't changed from that yet. We still have invested in this portal, so we're going to continue to use this for the time being, but Micro Focus looks very similar now in the out-of-the-box portal from the Advanced Authentication product. All right, lastly, real quick, before we move on to where we're going, logistics and shipping, I mentioned the company Bechtel, our partner, has basically done all of our logistics and shipping now. They provide all of our YubiKey orders and shipments worldwide, and they've shipped nearly 90,000 YubiKeys for us so far, and that continues to work pretty smoothly. So let's move on. I know this is a lot of information. Thanks for bearing with me, guys. Let me go ahead and just give you guys a little bit of glimpse at where we're going in the future. We've got a good foundation laid. We've been able to put a lot of building blocks on top of that foundation, but we're running into some additional challenges. One challenge we ran into, and we hit this like a brick wall recently because of the virus and the shutdown. We've sent home all our blue-collar workers, and we sent them home without BMW smartphones, without BMW email addresses, because they're just blue-collar workers. They're on the assembly lines. They don't have email. They don't have or BMW phone numbers, and they never registered for anything or enrolled anything before they left. So we're faced with the stark reality of how do we then authenticate these folks the first time to the portal without them simply adding using a username and a password. We don't want to allow a simple password login over the internet, and so we're forced with coming up with a clever idea. And so we've looked to some other scenarios around the world and other companies and similar situations, and one of the option that we're choosing to go with is this idea of an ID scan. We also have a number of different users in our user base, remember, and so one of the questions you might be having in the back of your head is, why don't they just leverage an email address or a phone number or a birthday or something? And the problem is we have such a diverse user base, we really can't pick any one single attribute and use that, because as I mentioned, all of our blue-collar workers don't have email addresses. Most of them don't have phone numbers in the system for us that we can easily leverage. They're in HR systems and would need some additional connectivity to those systems before we could do that. Our external partners certainly don't have up-to-date email addresses or phone numbers in our systems that we can leverage. So we're faced with this problem, and the solution the solution we're going to go with is look into a national ID or passport scanning option. And so Micro Focus product management is looking into this already for us and is working with some other companies to provide a service to allow us to have an ID scan. So when a user tries to initially enroll, say for a smartphone authentication, a token smartphone, or maybe a YubiKey if they were able to get one, we can authenticate them strongly, securely, without having to trust just a simple password. And so the proposed solution is being explored in more detail by Micro Focus, and this is where we're going with this in the future. We'll be able to do this worldwide. The company we're looking at working with has passports for the U.S. Since we don't have a national ID system. Countries that have national ID systems like Germany and others will be able to leverage those IDs as well. So a user will come to the portal. They'll be able to log in or attempt to log in. It'll say you don't have any multi-factor authentication methods available to you. Please use this ID scan option. Scan your ID. It'll validate you through the third-party service and come back with a valid or an accept or reject, basically. If accepted, we let you in. At that point, you can enroll for a YubiKey. You can enroll your smartphone, etc. All right, one more, or one or two more points here real quick. Chris mentioned some really cool stuff about this risk engine that Micro Focus is working on, and I'm not going to harp on this too much because I think he did a good job covering it, but we really want to leverage this here at BMW. We want to be able to use this to tell us, where people are coming from, if it's a risky, situation or not. So this is something that we have not yet been able to leverage, but now that it is actually part of the product and we can do so, we plan to do that in the near future. So the remainder of this year, I'll be spending some of my time and attention on this risk engine and how we can incorporate it into the BMW landscape to just enhance the security overall of the multi-factor authentication solution. Lastly, we are working on a mobile app for our users. This mobile app is being developed in-house. And it is going to include a couple of different, basically a couple different applications rolled up into one. The first one we wanted to roll up was the NFC reader function. So the NFC reader, there's a lot of NFC reader apps out there. We wanted to take that and leverage that and put that in our own app. We're also going to leverage the mobile SDK that Micro Focus provides us and go ahead and build into this an ability to do mobile push notifications over our app, as well as some of the enrollment portal features. And so just a brief little picture here. So the NFC function is pretty simple. It'll allow people who have an NFC-enabled YubiKey to just tap their YubiKey against their phone, scan their one-time password, and be able to use that. It's pretty straightforward. If you've ever done NFC before, it's really handy. And second of all, and kind of more importantly, is the enrollment stuff. So users will be able to manage and enroll tokens from their app in their phone. So we don't have to necessarily have to sit down at the desk, go to the website, and use the enrollment portal there. So they'll be able to enroll a PIN, a YubiKey, and even a smartphone. And we've built this enrollment portal. It's currently being built by our team here in the U.S. They're building it very similar to the way the website's enrollment portal looks. So they're very familiar, very similar to the end users. And so that way we have some similarities, and the users have a good familiarity with the enrollment portal, whether it's on the app or through the actual website. All right, so that pretty much wraps it up. With our partners, we're pretty well certain that our future here at BMW is a strong one. We look forward to continuing this journey with Micro Focus and our other partners. I thank you guys for your time, and with that, I'll give it back to you, Rob.
Awesome. Thanks, Dennis. That was amazing. That really kind of echoed some of the things that Chris talked about, about having all the technology in-house and just using what you have and making it work, and how our technology kind of underpins some of that. That was a great presentation. I appreciate that a lot. So listen, guys, I got a bunch of questions here. I know that we don't have a whole lot of time. We've got about maybe 6 minutes, maybe 5. So Dennis, since you are our guest, why don't we start with you? So first question is, why doesn't BMW utilize the YubiKeys as UTF tokens and do away with seed records?
Yes, good question. So the initial plan was actually to leverage our YubiKeys as U2F tokens, and this would have been really a game changer for us because it would allow for BMW to move into a bring your own device type of methodology for tokens. You could have, or BMW could have sent out a notification to all of our associates, all of our partner companies, all of our vendors, our dealers, et cetera, and said, hey, go to Amazon, buy a U2F token, go to this website, enroll that, and start using it. And that was our initial goal and plan, because then we get out of the business of logistics and shipping. We would no longer have to purchase YubiKeys ourselves and have those on our books, so to speak, financially. We'd be able to just completely do away with all of that. The problem is many of our applications are legacy. As I mentioned, all of the Radius applications are not capable of using U2F. U2F leverages a key pair, and unfortunately Radius has a key length maximum, I think it is 12 characters. So we're stuck using the YubiKeys as an HOTP token, which can generate, in our case, a 6 or 8 digit token code. So unfortunately, we're not able to use U2F for all of our scenarios. We do use it for the Windows logins because it's more. We do believe it's more secure and better than HOTP. But unfortunately, with all of our legacy applications and just the diversity of our IT landscape in general, we were unable to do that.
Cool, that's awesome. And listen, I've seen you talk about our technology in the past, and it's amazing how much further you've come even since the last time you talked about this. This is cool stuff. Next one for you. Why does BMW have to use ID scan for initial enrollment over the internet?
Sure. So, I mean, as I mentioned, there's a lot of material in this slide to cover in a half an hour. So I apologize for cramming it all in there. But I did touch on this a little bit. So the reason we have to do this is because the diversity of our user base. So our dealers, for example, and some of our other external partners, some of these guys might share accounts against our wishes. And so we don't really have personal email addresses. We don't have phone numbers for these external users. And even with the internal associates, like the separation between white collar and blue collar workers, the data that we have behind the scenes to validate these different knowledge factors is very different. Internal associates all have email addresses. We all have, or many of us have BMW managed phones, so we have BMW phone numbers available. Blue collar workers, 99% of them don't have an email address at all. And so we can't just look at our user repository and say, well, let's just send an email with a one-time password and to all users, and that can be their initial second factor. We can't do that. And actually, the more we look, the more we realize there's no attribute that we can use across the board for all of our different users. And so it's really posed a really difficult challenge for us. And we decided that this was an option that could fit pretty much all scenarios. I mean, there's still going to be a slight margin of people who cannot do this because perhaps their ID has their name on suffix that's different. So there might be some exceptions, we're sure, but this is probably the closest we're going to get to a one-size-fits-all solution.
That's cool. All right. Because of COVID-19, more personal devices are allowed on networks more than ever before, right? People are all working from home, using their own devices. Has the pandemic changed any of the zero trust principles as a result?
No, honestly, if anything, it's brought them into sharper relief, right? It's shown that digital transformation is a journey we've been on for a few years now, but man, the last few months has basically just taken the foot and stomped it down on the accelerator pedal, right? Digital transformation is here, whether we're ready for it or not, right? And it's hitting some companies and some organizations harder than others. I had a call with a U.S. federal government group last week, and they do everything through cards, smart cards, which is fine. But the problem is when all my readers all my users are within the walls of my organization, and my support staff can go and fix a broken card or fix a broken reader, and the readers I'm using are a lot higher quality. When I send everyone home, well, now I'm using portable readers, and they're nowhere near as reliable, and it's killing productivity and things like this. So personal devices, being able to see and fingerprint a personal device, hugely important. Seeing and understanding, is this person coming, what device is this person coming from? And is this something I've seen before? This is something we talked about in my part of the presentation where, if anything, what we're doing now is bringing these requirements and these needs into sharper focus. Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. We've certainly hit the accelerator pedal towards this digital transformation because of this pandemic.
We're dragging some companies kicking and screaming into digital transformation.
Absolutely.
It's happening. So.
Yep. It became a whole lot more important all of a sudden. All right, listen, Dennis, Chris, that was awesome. Thank you for taking the time today. We are about 5 minutes past the top of the hour, so I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Guys, thanks a lot for coming. Thank you to our speakers and the audience for everybody's participation with the questions. They were great questions. Thanks again, and that concludes this part of the event. Thanks, everybody.